The assassination of President Abraham Lincoln took place on April 14, 1865, at Ford's Theater in Washington, D.C. The man who killed him was an actor at the theater named John Wilkes Booth. Booth had originally planned to kidnap Lincoln and hold him as ransom in exchange for Confederate soldiers. By 1865, John Wilkes Booth had formed a group of co-conspirators that included Samuel Arnold, Michael O'Laughlin, John Surratt, Mary Surratt, Lewis Powell, George Atzerodt, and David Harold. On April 11, 1865, President Abraham Lincoln delivered a speech at the White House about the ending of the war, the abolishment of slavery, and how Confederate states could rejoin the Union. John Wilkes Booth was so infuriated that he was heard saying that will be the last speech he ever gives. On the morning of Friday, April 14, 1865, Booth went to Ford's Theater and learned that both President Lincoln and Union General Ulysses S. Grant were going to attend the performance of Our American Cousin. Later that morning, the conspirators met one last time and decided the only option was to assassinate the three most important people of the Union government. John Wilkes Booth was going to kill President Lincoln at Ford's Theater. George Atzerodt was to kill Vice President Andrew Johnson at the Kirkwood House. Finally, Lewis Powell and David Harold were responsible to kill Secretary of State William Seward, who was bedridden at his home. All of the assassinations were to occur approximately at 10:15 p.m. At 8:30 p.m., President Lincoln and his wife arrived at the theater in a horse-drawn carriage. At 9:30 p.m., Booth arrived at the alley behind the theater on horseback, and he went next door to have a drink. At 10:07 p.m., John Wilkes Booth entered Ford Theater armed with a single-shot Derringer and a hunting knife. He proceeded to make his way towards the state box. At 10:15 p.m., John Wilkes Booth entered the unguarded state box and shot President Lincoln at near point-blank range. He proceeded to jump from the state box after stabbing Major Henry R. Rathbone in the arm. Major Rathbone was sitting with his wife in the Lincolns. Upon landing, Booth broke his leg just above the ankle. It is believed that he shouted in Latin, "As always, to tyrants." Booth escaped through the back door and fled the city on horseback, using the Naval Yard Bridge. After being shot, Lincoln was immediately paralyzed and went unconscious. He was transported across the street to the Peterson's boarding house, where he died the next morning, April 15, 1865, at 7:22 a.m.